Welcome back, everyone, to Double Take, an NFL podcast streaming everywhere you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I'm your host, David, joined by my co-hosts, Daniel, Savage, and joining us today is my friend and special guest, Chris Joins. Chris, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for finally letting me be on the podcast. I've been talking to you about it a long time, so it's nice to finally be on the podcast.
He's really been grilling me over. He says, David, you never have me on. Why haven't you asked me to be on yet? And I thought that this right now is the perfect time for him to come on because it's playoff time. The regular season is officially over. These games now, it's one and done. You lose, you are out. And so this is what football, professional NFL football, is all about. So, Chris, we're going to start with you, obviously, since you're new to the show. And Daniel has set this precedent on our show of kind of us getting to know and our listeners getting to know who you are and your heart for football. But first, let's start with the question, which team are you a fan of? Who is your team?
Yeah, so I am a Los Angeles Rams fan, but I will still always claim them as St. Louis. But yeah, LA Rams fan.
Yeah, and how long have you been a Rams fan all your life?
No, so we grew up, we watched the Cowboys because that's what you do, America's team. Grew up in Arlington, Texas, and so we watched the Cowboys, and my dad's a Chiefs fan. But around 2010 is when I really started, I don't want to like the Cowboys just because it's always what we watched, or I was never going to be a Chiefs fan. And so they got Sam Bradford that year, and loved Sam Bradford, big OU fan. And so just got to watch that. And I remember my dad talking about the greatest show on turf. And so I would always go back and watch those highlights of, that 1999 St. Louis team that just was phenomenal. And so that's kind of where it started. So they were not amazing when I started watching them. Sam Bradford, great college quarterback, but could not stay healthy. But I got to watch a couple games there in St. Louis, which is just awesome. And so, yeah, that's how I became a Rams fan.
And so in talking about, the Rams and you becoming a fan in 2010, do you have a favorite Rams player, like of all time, of someone who you're just like, yep, that's my guy?
Yeah, I'd probably say, watching highlights, it would probably be, if I'm going to say greatest or favorite Rams of all time, it would probably be Marshall Faulk. Just the way that he could run the ball. Obviously he was also on the greatest show on turf. So that was a fun time to watch. And so I guess all time it would probably him. Todd Gurley would probably be a close second, just because that guy was, when he was healthy and in his prime, that guy was a beast. But yeah, that probably my greatest of all time would be either Marshall Faulk or Kurt Warner. Just because, you watch The American Underdog, it was a great story of just his life and who he was, and just kind of how he got started is just a really cool experience in the NFL. If not many people have a story like that and do what he did. So, yeah.
And so who would you say this season has been the best player on the Los Angeles Rams?
Oh, I would say no doubt Puka Nacua. It's sad to see because, I draft Cooper Kupp every year in my fantasy leagues. And then every year I'm like, why'd I do that? He either gets injured or for whatever the reason this year, I don't know if he's just so banged up. But he was not getting open. And then obviously the weeks that I would sit him, he'd go off and then he'd go back to his 6 points, 5 points. But no, what Puka did in his rookie season, I don't think anybody saw that coming, really. I didn't know much of him when we drafted him. I was like, okay, we got a wide receiver. Maybe this guy will help open up Cooper Kupp, so that we only have so we don't only have Cooper and Higbee for Matthew Stafford to throw to. And so, just the records he broke this year. I know, sadly, they're probably going to give Rookie of the Year to C.J. Stroud. which I personally don't think he needs it. But we've talked back and forth. Sadly, a lot of those awards go to quarterbacks. But it's like, man, without CJ Stroud's wide receiver core, he wouldn't have been doing what he was doing. And so, with Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, he had amazing people, and so did a lot of those quarterbacks have won it. But Puka breaking some records that I don't think people thought would be broken, especially by him. He was not getting high praise, and so I loved watching him play. I think he has the ability to go far in this league and end up being a premier wide receiver. But he could also have just a total rookie outburst and then be nothing afterwards. I think I loved watching him play just because, man, the way he ran routes, with the physicalness that he played with, and just there were times I was like, there's no way he's going to catch that. And then he catches it and breaks it for a touchdown. And I'm like, man, wish I would have drafted him instead of Cooper Kupp. But yeah, Puka Nacua by far has been fun to watch this season.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of run into that. This is not a question that I had coming up, but I mean, you bring up an interesting case of Rookie of the Year for Puka Nacua, and I'm going to let Savage answer this question first, but I'll first enter my opinions of what I think is going to happen. I think you're obviously going to have CJ Stroud win Rookie of the Year. You're the number 2 overall pick. You go to a organization that we were speaking ill of heading into this season just because of the turnaround of coaches that they had, the whole Deshaun Watson issues and all of that. So you have CJ Stroud go into that situation where probably the majority of us thought that they were going to be picking in the top 3 once again. He has them at 10-7, and say what you want about, you're talking about 2 former Cowboys, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz. There were reasons why they were not on the Cowboys. And I think CJ Stroud elevated them to a level that they clearly could not meet in Dallas. Do you have someone like Tank Dell, who is a rookie? They have that special connection. They played well. And even when you look at CJ Stroud, he has, I could be wrong, but he averaged the most passing yards per game this season of any quarterback as a rookie. He had the best touchdown to interception ratio as a rookie. And so I think when you take into those things into account, I think that's why CJ Stroud's going to win Rookie of the Year. However, because of the things you highlighted of Puka Nacua breaking rookie receiving records, franchise, and also NFL, I believe, I think that's why he's going to be the offensive Rookie of the Year. And so I think those two things go hand in hand. But Savage, what are your thoughts on Rookie of the Year? Who do you think wins it and things of that nature?
Yeah, my take's similar to yours, David. I think for Rookie of the Year, me personally viewing it from outside perspective of I'm not a fan of the Texans or the Rams. I think the choice has to be Stroud, and here's why. Stroud, and this might be a fun conversation out of whenever the football season slows down, but Lovie Smith might have done the greatest move in Texans history by winning that last game to make them go to the 2 spot. Because if they would have ended with Bryce Young, there's no way they're in the playoffs right now. But that's aside the point. So they get CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud has a defensive head coach with DeMeco Ryans. So to have an explosive offense with a defensive coach is not extremely common, let alone for a rookie. Tank Dell, let's look at their receiving core. The reason why Dalton Schultz isn't a Cowboys because we didn't want to pay him. It wasn't a skill issue. It was
we paid him more than Houston did. He had a bigger contract with us than with Houston. Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, we had to. That was more of a cap move than a skill move. So he's a solid tight end. You could probably make an argument for a top 10 tight end with him. I don't know the numbers or the names off the top of my head, but he's probably in that 7 to 10 range for tight ends. But you look at the rest of that receiving core. I'm not sure if that's a top 16 receiving core in the league. Between Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and, Noah Brown. I mean, Noah Brown was hot dog water on the Cowboys. He couldn't find the field. Even whenever we had, just not very good receivers around, we didn't have a great number 3 receiver for too long. And even then, he wasn't really making that many plays on the Cowboys. So I think with that receiving core, what he's able to do with them, to me, that speaks of C.J. Stroud's offensive genius. And I look at Puka, and Puka has, Matt Stafford, who is criminally underrated. Matt Stafford is a fantastic quarterback. His arm talent is ridiculous. Does he throw picks? Sure, but you can live with that considering how many just great throws that he can give you in the course of a game. So you have you have a fantastic head coach. You have Cooper Kupp standing on the other side of the field with you, right? He's there with you, who's going to be taking – I mean, Chris, you might know this more than I do, but I would imagine Cooper still gets the best cornerback on the defense, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so Puka's lining up against their number 2 guy most of the time. And then you have the offensive brilliance of Sean McVay writing up plays for you. And so I think when you look at the system in which both of those players are operating in, Puka, while certainly has exceeded expectations by far, and I was a Puka manager this year. I picked him up in week 3.
I was too.
And just ate with Puka. I mean, he was a top 10 player in fantasy this year. While he did those fantastic things, I think the system for him walking into it was perfect for his game. As to where with CJ, I think he had to overcome a lot more difficulty. No one thought this Texans team was going to be that good. Of course, nobody really thought the Rams were going to be good either. I mean, I think Vegas over-under was 4.5 wins for them. So they've exceeded expectations. But for me, I think with quarterback being such a position of, it's my famous take on this show is a figure it out position. I think as a rookie having to figure it out the way that Stroud has, wide receivers they're not the ones responsible for figuring it out. They just do your job, run your route, catch the ball when it's thrown to you. And so I would give it to Stroud. And, Stroud is, we can talk about this soon, but I wouldn't put it past them to win maybe even 2 playoff games. I think they have a chance to do that, but they're for sure going to beat Cleveland.
Daniel, got any thoughts there? Your audio is not working. Oh, there we go. Sorry. No, I agree with everything you guys said. It is difficult for a overall position award to go to anyone but a quarterback. So I obviously agree. I think C.J. Stroud will win Rookie of the Year, and then Puka Nacua will win Offensive Player of the Year. I think if Puka Nacua would have had the best year out of all the receivers, just like Cooper Kupp did a couple years back, then I could say that he could win the overall Rookie of the Year award. But I think degree of difficulty, context matters in an award like this. And like you guys said earlier, no one expected C.J. Stroud to be anything. If anything, people thought he was going to be a bust coming out of the draft. And on the Lovie Smith point, I don't know if maybe they do take C.J. Stroud with the number 1 overall pick. Maybe they had him ranked higher all along. But nonetheless, I think they knew what they had in that guy. They knew his steadiness, his command of an offense. And so I think the decision is easy in terms of overall Rookie of the Year just because of degree of difficulty for that year. But, man, these 2 guys, they put up an amazing season. And even the rookies of, C.J. Stroud, I think those are going to be core guys for him for a really, really long time because they make difficult catches. They can run. And so I think the future is bright for both these guys. Yeah. And so let's keep talking about the Rams, Chris. What are your thoughts? like, how far do you think your Los Angeles Rams can go? They were struggling early. They were not looking like a playoff team, especially when they played against the Dallas Cowboys. But since that game, and since Matthew Stafford has gotten healthy, Cooper Kupp has been able to, really recover on the field and get reacclimated with playing. You guys have been on a roll. The only loss coming to the Baltimore Ravens in overtime on a punt return. But how far can the Rams go this season?
Yeah. Man, at times we look like a team that can compete. But then at times I think I did like everybody else. I fill out my wins and loss per team at the beginning of the year, and I was like, dude, I'm buying the under on these Rams teams. Like, it's sad to say, but I was like, man, our defense is not what it used to be. We lost a lot of key players. Donald is getting up there in age. He's still a monster. But I mean, the defense was our biggest issue. I had no worries about the offense because, like you guys said, Sean McVay is just an incredible play caller, and the way that he schemes up things and gets his people open. And so, yeah, at times I was like, man, yeah, there's totally a reason why we shouldn't win more than 4 games. But then at times there were moments I'm like, man, this team can compete. And so as I was looking at the playoffs and who we might go up against, I mean, the script conspirators, man, what a season for that, to believe that the NFL has a script of, you've got 3 matchups between former teams of, man, Tyreek Hill going back up against the Chiefs. You got Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff playing their former teams, and then you got Mike McCarthy playing against the Packers. And so, man, Detroit's gonna be tough. That defense is stingy. Now it has been beaten up in the past couple of weeks, and they have not looked the part. But Detroit is not going to be a cakewalk at all. And so, a realist perspective as a Rams fan is we're going to be done in the first round. But the fact that we made the playoffs is huge for me. This team shouldn't have made the playoffs, but we won some key games, and we had some that we should have beat Baltimore. I won't go into was that a block in the back or not. Heck of a run back by a dude that really doesn't see the field much, but man, he made us pay for that punt return. And so to take Baltimore to overtime, and they are playing hotter than anybody right now, which is just crazy because Lamar is not putting up amazing stats, quote unquote, but he is doing what needs to be done, and their defense is. So yeah, Detroit is going to be a hard one, but I think if we beat Detroit, it's just going to be we won 1 game because I think we'd be playing the Niners after that.
Yeah,
and I know we beat them at the end of the season, but they weren't playing Purdy. McCaffrey was a little bit banged up, somewhat, and so we got the victory at the end of the year, but the 49ers didn't care about that game. And the last time we played them, it wasn't that close of a game, if I remember correctly. And so, the homer in me is like, yeah, we're going to do it again. Somehow we're going to shock the nation. But man, if you get past the 49ers, you're going to have to get past the Cowboys. And I don't see that happening, with our defense and how they've been inconsistent all year. This is when defense matters, is in the playoffs. You can get by with offense throughout the regular season, but when you've got a shaky defense that really it's going to depend on our front 7 and can they get pressure because our corners are mediocre at best. We're just not that team that we were 3 years ago when we won the Super Bowl. That's a totally different defense. But I think we'll put up points against Detroit. I think we'll score on them. I personally don't see them getting past the first round, but if we do, it's good. We won 1 playoff game. We can say we did that, and the Cowboys didn't. But we'll see. Cowboys, I have going pretty far this year, but that's how every Cowboys fan is. and we'll see. So yeah, realistically, we played in the playoffs, and we can say, hey, that was a successful season when they projected 4 wins, and we somehow scraped by, got in the playoffs, and so if we can keep getting defense, I hope that that's what they do in the draft, because clearly that's where we're lacking. So yeah.
All right, Daniel, I'm gonna have you take this one first, and then Savage, you can respond. But how far do you think that the Rams could go?
I give them a good chance to beat Detroit. I really do, because Detroit, like Chris, like you said, the Rams they're also inconsistent. There's times where that defense looks suspect, and against Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, with Matthew Stafford, with Kieran Williams, they have a chance to outscore Detroit. And even with Jared Goff, when he gets rattled, man, he looks the opposite of Matthew Stafford. Savage made a really funny comparison how statistically these guys are almost the same. But it's in moments where you need them to be clutch where Matthew Stafford has that edge. And I would give it a pretty considerable amount of edge to it. And so for me, I do think if they go against the 49ers, what I've been hearing as of late is that if the Rams were to play against the 49ers, they actually have a chance to seat the 49ers. I think they may be the only team that people think that can beat the 49ers from what I'm hearing, because of the fact they are a division opponent. We all know how that usually go, unless you're the Cowboys. So I think it's possible to get to the NFC Championship game, I do think. But if I were to put something like I firmly believe in, I think they can beat Detroit and get to the 49ers. That's where I think their ceiling is this year.
Yeah, I agree mostly with what you're saying, Daniel, for the first time in a double take history. We're agreeing on something here. I definitely, and I don't even think it's a good chance. I think the Rams outright beat Detroit, and I'm not sure if it's even close. Reason why is because defense matters in playoffs, but what matters even more than defense is coaching. And, Dan Campbell versus Sean McVay is a street fighter versus a Navy SEAL. I mean, Dan Campbell is emotionally unstable as a head coach, and that is nightmares. That is nightmare fuel for playoff football.
You don't think he learned his lesson at Dallas?
No, because I think the very next week he went out to the media and said, does Chicago, or who they played Chicago?
They played Minnesota. They played Minnesota.
He said, does Minnesota want me to email them all of our plays? So it was the next week, and he still wasn't over it. So, no, I don't think that he's ready. I think this is a same guy who his first time introducing himself as the head coach to a team says he wants to bite kneecaps. I think this guy is, he's a football player, he's a man's man, but he's not a tactician. He's not a strategic guy. You go for it on fourth down within 50 yards over 50% of the time. That's ridiculous. That's not playoff winning football. The story of that team isn't, it's their front office who keeps on drafting these guys, but Dan Campbell's not a good coach. I'm sorry. He's just not. There's no excuse for the Cowboys beating them that game. We played terribly, and we still beat them because of Dan Campbell. I don't want to hear about the refs. And so I think you have the quarterback advantage. You have the wide receiver advantage. You have the head coach advantage. I would say you have the defensive advantage. The only thing that they might, you could say they might have better is an overall running attack. And I don't even know if I believe that with Kyren Williams. So I'm looking at this matchup and I'm like, what does Detroit do better than the Rams? I don't know what the answer to that question is. And it's going to be in Detroit, so it's in a dome. You don't have to worry about wacky weather or anything like that. And everyone says that Jared Goff plays great in a dome, but I saw him give up 2 picks to the Cowboys in a dome. So
yeah, under pressure.
I don't think that you can trust Jared Goff in any circumstance. And so I have the Rams outright beating the Lions. I don't think that's even a close game. Then you look at the next week versus San Francisco, and just like you said, Daniel, that's a divisional game. Those are always crazy. And at the end of the day, playoff, you have I think the all-time record of McVay versus Shanahan is like I think McVay's 4-8 versus Shanahan. And that's a huge gap considering they're really close in ability of coaching. And so I don't think that that's going to – 4-9 just feels disrespectful. And then you look at the quarterback matchup. Oh, my goodness, is Matt Stafford a better quarterback than Brock Purdy? And so I give it about a 50-50 chance to beat the Niners. And then that means you'd be coming to Dallas. And, I mean, that's where all of my love for the Rams ends. But I give y'all a puncher's chance to get the NFC Championship. I give you a 100% chance to make it to round 2.
Yeah, I'm right there with Savage. And I think even when we look at, yes, this last game, maybe the 49ers didn't want to win this game or didn't even care about this game. They were obviously resting Purdy, McCaffrey, Kittle. But at the same time, even in the game before that, you said you couldn't remember if it was close. It was close for a while. And this is without Williams coming to form and with Cooper Kupp still on IR.
Yeah.
And so now you have a fully healthy Matthew Stafford. Kyron Williams is running the ball insanely.
Rolling.
Kupp and Nakua are doing their thing. I get the concerns about defensively about the Rams. But again, it's a division opponent. McVay is going to draw up a scheme that, will have Shanahan thinking. And again, when it comes to winning Super Bowls and being clutch in big moments, I don't think Kyle Shanahan has proven himself yet. Because he as a great of a genius he is statistically and as a technician, as a caller of the offense, he has not won a Super Bowl and actually has blown a 28-3 lead against Tom Brady. And so when we're talking about the Los Angeles Rams and their chances, I'm with Savage. I give them full confidence to beat Detroit. I think Matthew Stafford, he's not going to want to lose in Detroit. He's going to have the game of his career against Detroit. He's going to be doing no look across his body passes, and he's going to go off. When it comes to the 49ers, I just think that this Rams team now with their weapons fully healthy and all of that, he's going to you guys have a shot. You guys have a shot. And depending on which Cowboys team shows up, if we make it to the NFC Championship game, I even give them a shot against the Cowboys because you never know what kind of defense is going to show up, especially now that the Rams have a running game, which is something they didn't have when we played them. So I think the Rams can go pretty far.
Yeah, I think if you look at that 49ers game, that was the second game of the season. And I think if you look at the stats, the Rams did control that game. It was the 2 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
So you take away those 2 turnovers, they lost by 7. And you outscored them. Puka went off. I think his was 147 yards against that 49ers defense. And so that's true. That's why we got Matthew Stafford when we did. Jared Goff, yes, he was great, but he would not perform when it counted. When we needed him to, perform a under 2-minute drive in the fourth quarter, he couldn't do it. And so, no, I hear everything you're saying. I would love that. I would love to see Rams Cowboys in the championship. I think Cowboys are going to get past the Packers. And then I think Tampa Bay is going to beat Philly. Philly looks horrible. And I know it's way later in the show, but you're 10-1, and then you do that, you're going in the opposite direction going into playoff time when you have some teams that, Rams have gotten hot at the end of the season. Texans have gotten hot. So, here's all these teams that I think if you asked middle of the week or middle of the year, you'd be like, oh, there's no way. But they're trending in the right direction while some other teams are trending down going into the playoffs, which is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now we're going to transition into, obviously, with 3 Cowboys fans, we're going to go into Cowboys talk. Chris, you can offer your thoughts here at this point. But I'm going to start, obviously, with Savage. So the Dallas Cowboys won the NFC East and locked up the number 2 seed after beating the Washington Commanders 38-10. We showed semblances of a ground game. with also Dak and CD showing up on the offensive side, while the defense did what they do to Sam Howell, and that is take the ball away, ending the season on a really great note. Now, we are staying in Dallas as the number 7 seeded Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love come to play us this weekend on Sunday at 4:30 on Fox. Now, here's the thing we have to know. In the last 8 games of the regular season, Jordan Love has thrown 18 touchdowns and only 1 interception. He has been lights out at this back end of the season. But, Savage, I'm going to start with you and then Daniel. What are your thoughts heading into this game, and what is your confidence level in this team?
Yeah, man, I feel good. I feel really good about this game. There was a couple of things that I said I wanted to see from the Washington game. I said I wanted to see Ferguson get 70 yards of receiving. He got 69 yards of receiving. So me being the kind person I am, I'll go ahead and round that up to that's exactly what I wanted to see. I mentioned that Brandon Cooks has had a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 games, make that 5 of his last 7. So he is becoming, as small as he is, a red zone threat, which is just fantastic. I said I wanted to see Tony Pollard run the ball. He got 70 yards on the ground. And Dak played as clean of a game as he could have. That interception was not his fault. And other than that pick, I mean, 31 of 36 for 279 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a tipped interception with a QBR of 94.6. Look, he couldn't have really played any better right there. He did what he should have done, and it was on the road. And everybody's saying the Cowboys can't play on the road. Look, I don't want to hear it, okay? And at this point, who cares? Because we might not have to play on the road until the Super Bowl. So I feel good going into this game. The only player, as Skip Bayless has been saying all week, that is still on that Packers team from whenever Mike McCarthy was there was Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is by far the scariest player on the Packers for me. It's not even close. I don't want to hear about Jordan Love. This is his first ever big boy game. I'm not scared of him. He's going to make his mistakes. He's practically a rookie, and it's playoffs, and it's a defense that can be really turnover prone, as in getting turnovers. Inexperienced quarterback. I'm not afraid of that. What I'm scared to death of is if Aaron Jones starts cooking and looking down at the end and seeing that he has 167 running yards with 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's what I'm most nervous of. But after this last game, we only gave up 50 rushing yards to Washington. And so, granted, Brian Robinson and Aaron Jones, those are 2 different people. But for the most part, our run defense showed that it can stand up. And so I think what happens in this game, I don't think that defense is going to stop us. I think we won't punt the ball this Sunday. I think it's one of those no punt games. I think Brandon Aubrey's going to probably hit 3 field goals, and the rest of the time we're going to score touchdowns. We might put up 40 on this defense, and I just don't think they're going to keep up. I'm expecting something around 38, 45 points for our offense, and we might give up 17 points. But this isn't going to be a close game. This is a game that I'm going to watch the whole thing because it's a playoff game, but I'm probably not going to be – I'll be on my phone in the 4th quarter. You know, it's kind of one of those type of games. So everyone wants to mention the Cowboys' record against the Packers. I don't that's called Aaron Rodgers. That's more of an Aaron Rodgers thing than it is a Packers thing. Also, the Jimmy Johnson curse is lifted off the team. So I think that's another very important analytical thing to mention. Strictly by the numbers, the Jimmy curse is gone. So I feel good. Dak's going to figure it out in round 1, and we're going to march ahead to another cakewalk game in round 2. So go Cowboys.
Yeah, for me, I agree with Savage. I believe we are going to win this game for the reason he just listed. The fact of the matter is that Green Bay's defense don't think they can stop our offense. But the one thing that it is different from my take than Savage's, I don't think our defense is going to be up to the task. I think they've shown that against good offenses, they crumble. They've proved that this year. You talk about Jordan Love, 18 touchdowns to 1 interception. He takes care of the football. And I think a lot of times what our DBs do is they get comfortable. The injury to Stephon Gilmore has me concerned a little bit. Can he still run? Yes. But if he needs to get physical with these receivers, I don't know if his body is going to allow him to do that. And then, like you said, Aaron Jones is a scary back, and he's been the one who's been plaguing the Cowboys in these matchups. So for me, that's what I don't feel comfortable. I think I agree with you. I think it's going to be high scoring for the Cowboys. I have the Cowboys winning 35-28. Yeah, and so for me, I think the one last thing that I will say before I turn it over to Chris or to David is the Jimmy Johnson curse may be lifted. But you guys have heard me say this for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months now. There's still a curse on this team. His name is Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin continuing to put the Cowboys in the Super Bowl after a measly victory against the Washington Commanders is the reason. You talk about a couple of years, like the past 2 years, David has said it. Book your tickets now. Book your tickets now to the Super Bowl. He's on that train again, and every time he does that, the Cowboys lose. So the Jimmy Johnson curse may be over, but Michael Irvin is the true curse of the Dallas Cowboys. David, take it away.
Chris, I'm going to let you respond to all of that, and then I'll come up and follow, and then I'll let Savage go at it again because I know he's got some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cowboys have this one. Yes, Green Bay tough in the playoffs, but I think like both of y'all said, they don't have Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love, I think he's done great. He's done a good job. But like Savage said, this is his first game in the playoffs, and you got to play a Cowboys team. They're at home, and I think people are ready to finally see a playoff win. And this is the team to do it with. And so I think if they can get that run game going with Pollard, I think that's the biggest, as a secondary Cowboys fan, that's been the biggest flop is, you get rid of Zeke Elliott because you're like, man, Tony Pollard's our guy. And I don't know if it's play calling. I don't know if it's just the level of competition did not spur him like it did last year. But if they can get that run game going against the Packers, I think that takes the pressure off of Dak. And I think we could all agree that when pressure is put on Dak, that's when he struggles. He's a phenomenal quarterback, phenomenal play caller, but when he starts to feel the heat, he struggles at times. But then he can also go out and light it up, and you're like, dude, where is this at? And so, they're 7.5 point favorite. I see them winning by at least 10. I just think that, man, CeeDee Lamb, whether he is on drugs or not, he's a beast. I mean, the fact that what he did immediately was like, oh, we got to drug test him. I mean, that guy is phenomenal. There was one moment, I think Dak just chunked it up, and CeeDee Lamb went and got it. And he is, I mean, I not speed-wise, but he is what Tyreek Hill is to Tua. He's not going to just blow you out with his speed. He's fast. But, man, he is a guy that, yeah, you can chunk it up. And if you get it somewhere near him, you better believe he's either coming down with the ball or he's making sure no one else gets it.
Yeah,
and so I just think CeeDee Lamb is going to have a field day. I mean, I think him and Dak have just really gotten their chemistry together. And I just think the Packers, they don't have the talent to keep them at bay. I think it'll be close for a little bit just because that's who Dallas is in the postseason. But I do think that, I mean, this one's pretty much guaranteed. But I love the Michael Irvin curse. That's hilarious. That's great. But I do think for Cowboys fans, I think this is, I don't want to say it, but I think this is the year that they can get at least one win. And then continue that. And so, I think they could do it. This game is Cowboys. And I think Savage is right. They can literally have home field advantage up until the Super Bowl. And so I think hopefully the team is fired up. and wants to play for that. Come on, it's time. You guys have a great defense. You have a great receiving core. You've got a great quarterback. I know people hate him, but I think he's phenomenal. He puts up the same stats as many of the other quarterbacks that we praise. He's better than Josh Allen statistically when you have interceptions and all that. And does Stephen A. Smith ever bash Josh Allen? No. He's like, oh, Dak's terrible. And it's like, he's got the same yardage, same touchdowns. So if you're going to be mad at him, be mad at everybody else. So I think, Cowboys easily make it past the Packers. And then if things go like I think, they're going to be playing Tampa Bay. And I love Baker Mayfield, but I think they're going to get destroyed. And then they got a good chance. They got a good chance in the NFC Championship. And man, if they're in the Super Bowl, it'll be an exciting time. So that's my take on the Cowboys. They could be the hottest team and destroy everybody in the playoff field, or they could lose to the Packers, or lose to the Browns. Like, they could lose to that level of play, just as easy as they can crush the best team. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to reserve my thoughts when we enter this next question. But Savage, I'm going to let you address that Michael Irvin shot. Is it true? Do the Cowboys have a Michael Irvin curse?
First of all, there's no such thing as negative curses being added. There's only positive curses being lifted. Okay?
What about the Jimmy Johnson curse? Wasn't
no?
That
That's
negative?
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Let me make my take, please. What I'm saying is positive things are real. Like the Jimmy Johnson curse being gone, that's real. There's no such thing as negative things coming in a curse. Okay, come on. Let's just be this.
That makes no sense.
Really quick,
okay. That makes no sense.
Really quick though. Can we stop acting like Jordan Love did something? Okay, stop it. The last 5 games for the Packers, they're 3-2. They beat Justin Fields. They beat Nick Mullins. They beat Bryce Young. They lost to Baker Mayfield, and they lost to Tommy DeVito. Can we stop acting like this is a viable team? They're not. This is what our defense can't stop them. What do you mean? The only people they've been able to stop is Justin Fields, Nick Mullins, and Bryce Young in the last month, and everyone stops them. They couldn't stop Baker Mayfield. They couldn't stop Tommy DeVito, who right now is eating his mother's chicken cutlets. So what are we talking about here? They're not going to put up points on us. They won't get 20 points. They won't. They can't. Dontavian Wicks is the guy that's going to cook our Pro Bowl cornerback? No, absolutely not. Okay, the only person who can cook is Aaron Jones, and he can't turn up his skillet to 20 points. It's not going to happen. I don't believe it. I don't see it. Our pass rush is going to come home. Dorrance Armstrong has a sack in 3 of his last 4 games. Micah Parsons is finding his way back to the quarterback. Finally, we have Jordan Lewis for the first time in his NFL career showing up to games. You have Donovan Wilson, who's been on a heater recently. You have Stephon Gilmore saving touchdowns. Our defense is back, and it's at home versus the 7 seed. This guy, Jordan Love, he's so good. He's only good enough to get a 7 seed in the weak NFC North. When Kirk Cousins goes down, you have a junior high coach that's coaching the Lions. And then you have the Bears, who the last time the Bears were good, I was not even alive yet. So let's stop acting like the Packers are a formidable team. This game won't be close. And I don't care if Michael Irvin says what he says. Michael Irvin, last time I checked, he's won a couple Super Bowls. He knows what a Super Bowl roster looks like.
But he's a trash analyst. He's a trash analyst. And he's been a cancer to Cowboys fans since he retired, and giving Cowboys fans hope for years and years and years, and then continuously get people's hopes to where they're crushed at the end of the season. That is Michael Irvin's history post those Super Bowls.
What about the Packers stuff I just said?
Again, what did the Cowboys do against Arizona?
Oh my God!
With a team that can run the football, like they can, and the Cowboys defense being suspect at times, and they've proven that they can be had even in the worst moments. At the end of the year, what it always continues to be a theme is the Cowboys will do cowboyish things and lay an egg. That has been the history, and until they prove to me otherwise, I've said this since the Bills game. No longer will I believe that this is a different year than what I've seen in the past until they go out and do it.
Bro,
So
just fast forward me to next
everything you saying to me, to Stephen A's point, I don't care. I don't care, because they have to prove to me that they can do it, and they haven't proved to me that they can do it since 1996, and I won't believe that they will do it.
Fast
So
forward
the
to
only
next
way
week,
you're going to
though.
change my mind, and the Cowboys are going to change my mind, is if they go out there and do that against Green Bay. If they do that, if they can prove that they can shut Jordan Love down and this is a different year, then I won't bring up the past anymore. If
So
the Cowboys
basically-
do this week, then I will not bring that up, because this year will be a different year. But until that time, I'm not going to believe it. I don't care what analysis you have, what the breakdown of Jordan Love, who he's played, who he hasn't played. It doesn't matter to me.
So
What matters to me is that the Cowboys have continuously done Cowboys things. And until they prove to me that they won't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me.
All right. So just to summarize, analytically, you don't have a response to me.
I have history.
You have hocus pocus.
I have history.
You have Harry Potter movies.
I have 28 years of history that tells me that. 28 years of history tell me that there's a chance that they won't do it.
Okay, so then I don't ever want to hear you talk about other curses from other people, because right now you're putting curses.
I never talk about curses.
He actually never does.
You're not talking about.
Is not
Well, actually,
negative.
you said Michael Irvin. You said Michael Irvin, though.
You brought up Michael Irvin.
And
you
if we're
are
going to use
talking
Jimmy
a
Johnson,
curse.
why can't I use Michael Irvin?
You are
Because
talking
if
a curse right now.
if we're going to use that as an excuse for Jerry Jones being a terrible owner and giving him a pass because of Jimmy Johnson, because Jimmy Johnson left, that's why we haven't done anything in 28 years, then of course I can bring up Michael Irvin.
I feel like I'm watching the Sci-Fi Channel because you're bringing up 28 years of history. I'm talking right now. The last month of football.
Again, they have to prove it. They have to prove it. We believe in them until Buffalo and until Miami, two good teams that we believe. Because look at me, I was like, yeah, this team's good. This team's ready. And then Buffalo happened, and then Miami happened, and then Detroit happened. So you can't tell me that
we beat Detroit.
We've changed history, and then we go and lay two eggs that we're not supposed to lay, and then come and tell me, oh, we're gonna be just fine. It's over. The curse is over.
The Packers stink, dude. The Packers stink.
I hope you're right.
We've won 17 home games.
I really do. But again, they have to prove it to me.
So let's move on. Let's keep this ball rolling with this question, because I think it goes exactly to what Daniel is talking about right now. This is a game that the Cowboys should win. This is not a game that the Cowboys should lose. We're the number 2 seed. Like Savage said, Green Bay is the number 7 seed. So in this football game, who is on the hot seat? Chris, I'm going to go with you first, then Daniel, then Savage. Who is on the hotter seat? Is it Dak Prescott, who's having an MVP-like season, or is it Mike McCarthy?
Yeah, I always hate when we blame coaches because the players still have to do it. I know you call the plays, but the players are the ones executing it. But I think if I would have to pick one, me personally, I think Mike McCarthy is in the hotter seat. Dak, like you said, has been putting up phenomenal numbers, but also we've seen moments where Dak is Dak, and you're like, oh yeah, great, we just got another Tony Romo that doesn't want to win in the playoffs, but he'll be an amazing asset in the regular season. But I think Mike McCarthy, when you're playing against your old team, there's a lot of people that have no faith in his play calling. And I think we would agree as we watch the Cowboys, there have been moments where we're like, really? That's how you wanted to call that part of the game? My grandma could have picked a better play call than that. And so I think yes, Dak needs to show up. But to have a coach like Mike's pedigree going against his former team, I I think if you lose that one, I think all the Cowboys fans are going to go unglued because, like we've been saying, you shouldn't lose this one. It's not like it's a close game. 7.5 points, I think that's pretty generous. Because, yes, the Green Bay Packers are the Green Bay Packers. But as Savage said, the last 5 games, they've played not that great of opponents, and they haven't blown them out. And, yeah, you lose to some 2 quarterbacks that you shouldn't have lost to. And I guess you could say Baker Mayfield too, but the other 2 you shouldn't have lost to. So, I think Mike McCarthy, as the coach of the Cowboys, one of the hardest teams to be a coach to because they are America's team. And when they don't do good, people let them know. But then when they're doing amazing, the hot seat is lifted. But, yeah, I think he's got the hottest seat right now because with the team that you have and the players that you have, you shouldn't lose. You shouldn't lose that game. And you should be marching into the Super Bowl with that roster that you have. There's no excuse. And so I think if it comes down to it, I think it's play calling and maybe not getting your team and your players ready for this moment because you've got some ballers on that team. And I think you're going to see a pick 6 from Bland. He's due. It's been a long time since he's done it. And so I just think, if you lose that game, I think we'll be frustrated with Dak, but I think he's going to put up numbers. I think it's just going to – if they lose, it's going to come down to horrible play calling and horrible clock management. And so, for me, Mike McCarthy, I think Dak can live another day and have redemption. But I think if he loses, I think Mike is gone or should be or at least be talked about. So,
Daniel?
This one's tough for me because I think context matters and situations matter in terms of who's going to get the blame. I think the 3 of us, we talked about it last week on Friday. It's like, hey, if they do lose, who does get the blame? And I think we were in agreement. If it's evident that Dak Prescott played bad, it's going to be Dak. But just like Chris said, if we can tell, like, man, what is he calling? It's going to be evident to all of us who it's going to be. But I do believe, just look at what Jerry Jones just did. He put Mike McCarthy on the hot seat. He just said he's evaluating him game by game. And if we lose this game with the expectation of this team needs to be in the NFC Championship game, Mike McCarthy is going to go. That's going to be the easiest decision for Jerry Jones to make is to get rid of Mike McCarthy. I think it's also one of those weird things too, because it's you go 12-5, was it 3 seasons or 3 out of the 4 seasons that you've been here and you get fired because of that. But again, that just with a roster like this and you don't go to the NFC Championship, much less a Super Bowl, that is why you get fired. So I think Mike McCarthy is on the hottest of seats because of his owner just put him on the hot seat. You can't get much hotter than that.
The answer's both. Here's why.
Honestly, yeah.
It is impossible, and I'm saying this because I mean this. It is impossible for Dallas to lose to the Packers and Dak Prescott have a good game. It's impossible. It can't happen. If we lose to the Packers, Dak did not play good. Right? It can't happen. And then if we lose to the Packers, Mike McCarthy needs to be fired the next Monday morning. And they both need to be gone, but it's going to look differently for Dak. For Dak, it's you don't give him an extension. And when his contract ends, his contract ends. And you let him go. He can't stay. There's not a scenario of like Washington that Dak gets 280 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick, and we somehow lose to the Packers because they won't be able to put up that many points. If we lose, it's Dak having 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. We fumbled the ball. McCarthy didn't call anything. We just didn't show up ready to play. We looked flat. And then if that's the case, that might be the second best outcome for the Cowboys in the playoffs. is us losing game 1. Because if we beat the Packers and then we lose the nail biter to Tampa, I think both of them come back. I think we pay Dak more in the offseason. I think Mike McCarthy keeps his job. And I think we're stuck for this same just mid-cycle for another 4 or 5 years. We either need to do the thing, go get that chip, or we need to lose right now. It's one of the two. But I do not want to be a team that loses in the middle 2 rounds. And then we keep the same status quo. We show up next year, and then there's really no way of telling a difference between double take season 2 and double take season 3, because it's going to sound the exact same conversations throughout the year. So no,
I'll just be more angry.
If you're going to wet the bed, do it in a few days. Don't wait a couple weeks. Do it in a few days. Or if we win, let's take it to the house. And that's what's going to happen. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. For me, it's Mike McCarthy. To head back into Savage's take of figuring it out. Dak has figured it out. The rest of the team hasn't. So I have complete trust and confidence in Dak Prescott that he's going to show up and he's going to play big, because when he plays against mediocre defenses, he always shows up. Now, in the same case, we could pull a Miami and fumble the ball on the 1 yard line, get offensive holding penalties, illegal shifts, things of that nature. And if that happens, I'm putting that on Coach Mike McCarthy, because he clearly, if you're not coaching it, you're condoning it. And you can't do that at this point in the season. And I think that's why, regardless of, is it great that Mike McCarthy has gone 12-5 the last 3 years? Yes, absolutely. A lot of teams would love to be in that position. But we've already been in that position way too much with a super talented team. Our biggest issue and our biggest problems have been penalties and have been coaching. Now, I said this last season. I put the blame on Dak Prescott struggling on Kellen Moore. I say Kellen Moore is the reason why Dak Prescott threw 15 interceptions last year. And I was proven right, because as soon as Mike McCarthy says, let's get Kellen Moore out of here. Now, Mike McCarthy didn't keep his promise, because he also said that we were going to have a ground game this year. That obviously didn't happen. You had Dak Prescott putting it more in the air than he even did the year before. But Dak Prescott in this system, in this offense, is playing the best football he's ever played. And everyone keeps talking about like this is the only year he's going to do it. He's not. This is Dak Prescott. This is Dak Prescott's ceiling. This is how good he is going to play. I have full confidence in that. In saying that, if Dak Prescott is the reason why we lose, even in the divisional round, we should not give him an extension. We shouldn't. Because then the narrative of him not showing up in the big moments is proven true. Because he is playing the best football he's ever played. He is supposedly, and I believe that this is the Dak Prescott that we've been waiting for. So if he doesn't go and he doesn't get it done, it's going to be on him. We can't give any excuses to anybody else. But in terms of the team, of who I trust, it's Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, those kinds of players that I have full confidence in. But I don't trust Mike McCarthy at all. Because even in Detroit, we saw him on a third down on our last drive decide to throw the football. Or decide to throw the football instead of running the ball, draining out the clock, kicking a field goal, and not having what happened at the end of that game happen. So, to me, it's going to be on Mike McCarthy if we lose this game. If we lose this game and it's Dak's fault because he throws only one touchdown and he throws 3 interceptions, then Dak Prescott, I'm going to say, is not the guy who can even lead us to a Super Bowl, can even be the quarterback of a Super Bowl team. And for me, as Dak Prescott is my favorite player in the entire NFL, that's going to be a hard pill for me to swallow. But I have full confidence in him. I have full trust in him. He's figured it out. Mike McCarthy hasn't shown us that he has yet. So he's on the hottest seat, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and let's move on to NFL talk. We're going to talk through a couple of things that have happened over this past weekend. First, starting out with the Jacksonville Jaguars, as they were 8-3 at one point in the year, and then have fallen from grace as they lose their season finale to the Tennessee Titans 20-28. Trevor Lawrence on a fourth down play cannot make the throw. Daniel, I'm going to start with you because you are a huge Trevor Lawrence fan. What are your thoughts on him and Jacksonville? What happened?
I think it's time to have that conversation about Trevor Lawrence. I like this kid in the Elite 11. That's when I first saw him, when he was in Cartersville, Georgia. Then when he went to Clemson, and in his freshman year took over a team and won the national championship. But since he's gotten to the NFL, I think, again, Urban Meyer was a travesty to his development early on. And then he had a kind of like a magic end to his season last year where, in the first half against the Chargers, he threw 4 interceptions, came back and won the game. And for me, I don't know enough about Doug Peterson to make a prediction on if he's the right coach for Trevor Lawrence moving forward. But I do know that that's part of Doug Peterson's kind of like he'll coach a quarterback to success one year, and then they just fall off the cliff the next year. And so, but at the same time, this team had a difficult time beating good teams this year. I think they got some really close ones, and they pulled some games out early in the year, and so a bunch of us were like, "Hey, look what Jacksonville can be." Looking at what Kansas City was doing early on in the year, we're just like, what do you do? And so I think naturally we just look at Jacksonville and was like, man, this is the team to beat. But then you see, I think after they played San Francisco, that's when the whole season went down the tank. I think something happened there, whether it was confidence or maybe they just got exposed that day, but they just had a complete and utter collapse. And, the quarterback, he's not innocent of it either. And so you have to have that conversation. Is Trevor Lawrence the guy? And so I think like I am with most quarterbacks, I need to see it for another year. Like I said with Jalen Hurts, last year he had probably one of the best years he's ever going to have. And then this year, look what happened to him. And next year will determine my opinion of that player. But it's on the down end right now.
Yeah. Savage?
I think Trevor Lawrence is still a good quarterback. I think he was 8-3 and then he got hurt and he played through injury and didn't look the same. And I think that happens with a lot of guys. He's still super young. He's shown really good promise. He did win the national championship in college, and then I think he got to another one, right? And he lost.
He did.
He lost though in that one. You remember who he lost to in that national championship?
I think it's this guy. His name is Joe Shiesty.
Was it? Oh, he lost to LSU. That's right. Go Tigers.
That's right.
LSU.
The best college football team ever, right?
National championship coming next year. But anyways,
that was Brian Kelly.
I think that Lawrence is a really good quarterback. I think he is going to compete year in, year out for best quarterback in that division between him and Stroud. And it just was a really unfortunate end of the year. And yeah. I think he'll bounce back next year when he's healthy. So also, I think it's so much understated how much the loss of Christian Kirk hurt that team. That team
thought Calvin really would fix things.
Christian Kirk was like the number 4 wide receiver in fantasy football for like the entire year. And then he got hurt and they just lost so many games. The reason why I know that is because my team was poised to make a run at the championship with Christian Kirk. And then we weren't in short order after his injury. So I think there's a lot of things. I think it's easy to just look and say Trevor Lawrence just isn't that guy, but I don't buy into that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move us on for the sake of time. Chris, I'm going to have you answer this question. Should the Chicago Bears part ways with Justin Fields?
They got to do a lot of things for the Chicago Bears to be good again. I don't think so. I same thing as you guys were saying about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, look at who Chicago had around Justin Fields. And he put up some numbers that, for a while I had him as my fantasy quarterback in one of my leagues. But when you don't have a confident receiving core, when your best weapon is DJ Moore or Cole Kmet, who DJ Moore, one week he'll put up 60 points in fantasy, and then he'll put up that combined for another 12 weeks. And then you have Cole Kmet, who has every now and then they finally realize they have a tight end, and they're like, oh yeah, let's throw to him. And so I don't think they should. I mean, I think for Justin Fields' sake, if he wants to have a good NFL career, then I think he's right. He needs to, this needs to be my time. I'm saying goodbye to the Bears. But I mean, let's see, how many times did he get sacked? 44 times. And that's a running quarterback. So I mean, the amount of toll that takes on his body, it's the same with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he got sacked more than he ever did this season in his whole career, and he still put up 60% passing, 4,000 yards, but his turnovers was 21-14 on interceptions. And so I don't think Justin Fields is not the answer for Chicago. I think they've got they need an offensive line, they need wide receivers, they need a better coach, they need a defense that they used to have. And so I think you have a quarterback who he's only 3 years in the league, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And so maybe you can make a case for Chicago of, hey, this guy, phenomenal athlete when he's healthy. I mean, he makes some plays that you're like, wow, that's impressive. But he can't stay healthy. And so, I mean, you have to weigh it of Justin Fields is a heck of an athlete. And he's way better than I would be on the football field. But he also can't seem to stay healthy. He played 12 games his rookie year. He played 15 games the next year, and he played 13 this year. And so I think for his career long term, it wouldn't hurt him if he went to a team that was different than the Bears. But I also think if you put the right pieces around him, I think the Bears could have something. Because you saw those flashes with DJ Moore every now and then this year, and Cole Kmet, and what Justin Fields can do with his legs is helpful. But I think that you're also seeing that same issue with running quarterbacks in Philadelphia. Of Jalen Hurts is one of the most athletic people in the league. But when you continue to take shots like that, shot after shot after shot, your body's going to break down. Jalen Hurts is going to be retired way before he should be if they keep running him like they're running him. Yes, the Philly the brotherly push is a phenomenal play that for some reason only Philly can figure out how to do. But I think they're also killing Jalen Hurts in the process. And you're seeing that. And so I think for running quarterbacks, they've got to – I don't know. I think it's hard for the league. But in a nutshell, I think Justin Fields would be fine if he stayed in Chicago if they draft better. But I also think it could be good for both of them if they part ways. But I'm not sure who really would fit in that system currently. I wouldn't want to put any rookie quarterback behind that line because dude, getting sacked 44 times, that's rough. That's tough. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that.
Difficult.
Getting hit by some of those boys, I'd break in half. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just a real quick, a one-word answer from all of you guys. Should Bill Belichick be done in New England? Daniel?
Yes.
Savage?
No.
Chris?
Yes.
I'm also going with yes.
Okay,
the only reason why
for next week for sure.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a segment for next week. Yeah, that'll be great. But now let's move on to ranking real quick the quarterbacks of the AFC playoffs. Here's what I'll do for the sake of time, I can give you guys my list, and you guys can tell me how your lists are different. Now, I did this ranking based on not necessarily team, but the ability of the quarterback. This is just my confidence level in their talent and their ability and in their consistency based on what they've shown throughout the season. So I'm going to start with the AFC first. My number 7 quarterback is Mason Rudolph. For clear reasons, he's just unproven in the playoffs. He's played pretty well these past couple of weeks, but there's really not a lot to say about Mason Rudolph. So I have him at that number 7 spot. At number 6, I have Tua. The reason why I have Tua at number 6 is because in big moments, in big games against big teams, he has not played particularly well. He's been average, especially in that Buffalo game. Josh Allen tried to give it to him, and credit to Buffalo's defense, but Tua gave the ball right back to them. And so that's why I have Tua at my number 6 spot. At number 5, this is going to make a lot of people mad, I do have Josh Allen. Josh Allen is on a 5-game winning streak, not because of Josh Allen. It's because of James Cook and the defense and Mr. Joe Brady. Okay. And so Josh Allen has continued to turn the ball over. I think he leads the league in interceptions now with 18. Sure, he has over 40 touchdowns, but he also gives teams the opportunities to score. And the reason why they're not is not because of Josh Allen. It's because of how great their defense is playing. And so Josh, I don't think he's going to do it this year. I think he's turned the ball over too much, and I don't see that changing. So I have him right now as my number 5 quarterback in the AFC. At number 4, I do have Joe Flacco. He's a proven veteran, has won a Super Bowl, is known to be streaky in the playoffs, and he's playing pretty good right now. His turnovers are higher than I would want, but man, that defense is good, and he's still putting up 300-plus passing yards every single week. And so I have Joe Flacco as my number 4 quarterback. At number 3, and Savage might be surprised that I have him this low, but I do have C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud is playing really, really great. Rookie of the year, leading the Texans. He's going against a tough Cleveland team. We don't know what he could do in the playoffs, but we do know what he's done in the regular season. He's a quarterback that you can trust, and spots 3, 2, and 1 are really, really close. At number 2, I have Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson playing great football. He's playing fantastic. His team is on a roll. His offense is going great, but he is unproven in the playoff still, which is keeping him out of that number 1 spot. But I give him a huge chance to change the narrative of his playoff career this season. And obviously, at number 1 is Patrick Mahomes, who's still the best quarterback in the NFL. He's not the problem in Kansas City. It's the receivers. It's his offensive line. He is the only reason why they've won as many games as they have. It's because of him performing and playing at a very, very high level. He's going to have a bad game. That's what the Raiders game was. All quarterbacks are going to have those. But you still have to trust that Patrick Mahomes is going to put the ball where he needs to. The question is his team actually going to catch the ball? That's not on Mahomes. That's why he's my number 1 quarterback in the AFC. But your real quick thoughts on that.
I think for me, I think I have pretty much the same list as you do. Josh Allen, Joe Flacco. I feel like that can be a flip on a particular day, but I won't fight you on that. So your list is very similar to mine.
Yeah, we agree on everything except 4 through 6. I have Allen 4, Tua 5, Flacco 6. I think Flacco, it's been a cute run, but I don't see him getting out of this.
Where he turns it on.
He doesn't get out of this weekend.
Chris, that's the most.
Man, mine's the fun one. I've got Rudolph like you last. I think but for unpopular opinion, and it's only because we haven't seen him in the playoff, is C.J. Stroud. Phenomenal player. I will not discredit that, but he has not been in a playoff yet. And so all these others, I'm like, dude, we've seen them. So then I've got Tua, I've got Allen, I've got Flacco number 3, only because he's got so much experience.
He does.
And that's going to help the Browns.
does.
Like, they've never had an experienced quarterback in the playoffs. You could say Baker Mayfield, but, I mean, it was Mayfield. So, Flacco number 3, and I've got Mahomes and Jackson flipped. And the only reason is exactly what you said, David. They have no receiving core that they can trust. They've got Travis Kelce, but his focus is on Taylor Swift and what he's going to do if he has a baby with her, and they got to pick between music and football. Like, they are dealing with this whole celebrity thing right now, and you could call it the same Tony Romo curse that he had with Jessica Simpson and all the other girls that he had. Mahomes is amazing, but when it comes to the playoffs, you need wide receivers that are going to catch and you can trust. And when your two are Mahomes and a rookie wide receiver, I'm sorry, like, Mahomes is going to ball out, but Jackson has been consistent. No, he has not put up just these insane stats, but I think he has controlled the game, and Baltimore is playing like Baltimore plays. And they're using Jackson how he should be used. And so for that's why I have him number 1, but I could easily put Mahomes number 2 or number 1 because, I mean, he's Mahomes. It's the playoffs, and they're in the playoffs. And so could the Kansas City Chiefs win it all? Yeah, they totally could. And Mahomes could be phenomenal. And we'd be like, yeah, that's Mahomes. Like, that's what he does. So I had a fun list, but I think it was just more because CJ Stroud, if he was not a rookie, I think he would be totally higher. But until he's shown that, hey, I can do it in the playoffs when it matters. He's above Rudolph just because Rudolph's an OSU player. And the Steelers are playing Bills. I don't see them doing what they've been doing. And I think the same of Flacco's been cute. Rudolph's been cute. But he's about to play a team that their defense is going to just have a field day with him. So,
Well, let's go ahead and go to the NFC. These are my list for the quarterbacks. At number 7, this is going to shock the world. I have Jalen Hurts. He is not playing his best football right now. He is turning the ball over. His team does not look good, and he's been part of the reasons of doing that. His interceptions are not coming off of tipped passes. They're coming off of inaccurate throws and trying too hard and pressing and pushing the ball downfield, and he's injured. So I'm going to have Jalen Hurts as my number 7 quarterback. At number 6, I have Baker Mayfield. Just because he's had a great season, it's looked good, but you also only put 9 points up against the Carolina Panthers in your season finale with the division on the line. And so he has his moments. He has excellent games, as Savage alluded to earlier in the show. Had a perfect quarterback rating in Green Bay, tore up that defense, which, you know, should prove good for us. But I have Baker Mayfield at number 6. At number 5, I have Jared Goff. Okay. Jared Goff, I said it last year, and I'm going to be consistent on it. He's a great He's a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback. But when you need him in moments to make a play, he's never, ever been that guy. Even when he was with the Los Angeles Rams and they went on that run, it was because of Todd Gurley. It was not because of Jared Goff. And in the Super Bowl, you only put up 3 points. So I can't put Jared Goff any higher than where I have him because of how he's played down the stretch against good football teams. Against Dallas, you throw 2 interceptions with the game on the line. And because of Mike McCarthy, great. And you're playing prevent defense, you're able to get downfield and almost win the game. But I'm not going to give you any credit for that. So I have Jared Goff at my number 5 spot. At number 4, I do have Jordan Love. I don't need him to be an LSU Tiger or an Oklahoma Sooner for me to give him his due. He is a good quarterback who's had a really, really good season, and he's played well down the stretch, and I can't ignore that. Now, I think that ends in Dallas? Absolutely, I do. I do, because his receivers are young, and also, this might be a hot take, I don't trust Aaron Jones in the playoffs. I don't. He likes to get hurt. He likes to get injured. He likes to be inconsistent on staying on the field. And I think that's what's going to happen against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that he's going to get hurt, and we're going to have to deal with Dylan for most of the game. And so, but I still want to give Jordan Love his credit, give him his love, pun intended. And I have him as my number 4 quarterback. At number 3, I have Brock Purdy. He has a great team. It's loaded. He's played well with this team. And what we saw in Week 18 is that Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy are not the same. They are different. And I think Brock Purdy is the quarterback who takes this team to where they need to go as long as they stay healthy. And that's the caveat, because we still have that Baltimore game that we can look at and say, you're not really the best quarterback in the NFC. At number 2, I have Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's proven. He's playing great down the stretch. He's fully healthy. He has a Super Bowl. And when he's healthy, he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And so I'll give him that credit. He's playing great ball right now. I have him at number 2. And obviously at number 1, it's my boy Dak Prescott, who is statistically should be the MVP, but I understand why he's not, and I'll acknowledge that. But Dak, no one's playing better football right now than Dak Prescott. No one is. And I think that against these teams that he has coming up in the playoffs, San Francisco is going to be probably his biggest test. But I think against all these other teams, he's going to carve them up. I have no doubt in my mind. He is the best quarterback in the NFC heading into the playoffs. But that is my list. Your thoughts?
I'll say my list, we only disagree on 4 through 7, but our top 3 is the same. 4 for me, I have Goff. 5, I have Baker. 6, I have Hurts. And 7, I have Love. I don't buy into what Jordan Love's doing right now. I get it looks cute, but you can't have the worst point differential in week 1 of the playoffs and not be the worst quarterback on the list. So,
I mean, he finished the season 2nd in total touchdown passes.
And that's cool.
That's not cute. That's good.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. You're the 7th seed. So,
Daniel?
Because they got a trash defense. That's why they're 7th seed. My 4 through 7 was a little bit different than yours. I had Jordan Love at 4, Jalen Hurts at 5, Baker at 6, and Jared Goff at 7. With Baker, I just love his heart. I love that he continues to fight. Again, the Carolina game, that's a divisional opponent. And so that's always going to be – and it's the last game of the season too. But they pulled out the win when they needed to. So I trust him more than Jared Goff. I really do. And then Jalen, because of the fact that he's had some games where if he can get it close, he can pull it out. He's proven that. And so that's why I have Jalen at 5. But I'm with you guys. Brock Purdy 3, Stafford 2, Dak at 1.
And really, if I'm going to be honest, I think if you want to switch Stafford and Prescott, like I'm okay with that, just because of what Stafford has done with this team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing I had different from you, David, is I flipped my 7 and my 4. So I've got Love at 7 just because, at times he'd put up 250, 260, 3 touchdowns. But then he'd throw a dud where he's got two interceptions, no touchdowns, and clearly that was why they lost the game. And then Mayfield is at 6, like you said. I mean, I love watching him play, but I think there's better quarterbacks in this league than him. And then I've got Goff, like you. He's proved time and time again he can't be trustworthy in the playoffs. And then I just put Hurts at 4 just because of his playmaking ability. And he is still a good quarterback. The only thing that I'm worried about is just like you, his injuries. He's not healthy, and A.J. Brown is not healthy. And most of the Eagles team is not healthy. And so then I've got Purdy at 3 just because, he's not experienced. He does what he needs to do. And then I had Stafford and then Prescott. I think, you could flip those 2, but I think it's mainly just because of Stafford's experience. But Dak is by far this year the better quarterback than Stafford. But Stafford also has years of experience in the playoffs, and he's done it before with the Rams. And so, I would only just switch Love and Hurts just because of Hurts' ability and Love's been mediocre. Yeah, he's led the league in touchdowns, or he's second in touchdowns, but you still are the 7th seed, and you have a lot of picks with that. And so, yeah, I think that's why he's not any higher than 7 for me.
Yeah, I mean, he's only got 11 in the year. Let's not get crazy. Dak has 9. He only has 11. I mean, you have other quarterbacks who have way more interceptions than him.
And his receivers aren't the best either.
I mean, they're mostly rookies, and he's done pretty good with them. But we're gonna go ahead. Wait, what'd you say, Savage?
Matt LaFleur is a really good offensive coach.
Yes, he is.
He really is. He's proven himself.
That man, he's been a godsend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to go ahead and enter into Pick'em for the wild card as we end the show. In Week 18, I was 11-5, and Daniel and Savage were both 10-6. But Savage still holds the percentage of 64.1. Daniel's at 62.4, and I was bumped up by 0.6% to 60.6. Now, this week of upcoming football, first up, we got the Cleveland Browns versus the Houston Texans.
Give me Stroud and company to finally end this mockery of supposed playoff contenders. Let's do it.
Give me Cleveland. I think Cleveland is going to be too much for CJ Stroud and this offense. If CJ Stroud, I believe in him. I think he's a great quarterback, but man, that Cleveland defense is no joke. They're going to make things really, really hard. Joe Flacco and the offense, they're rolling, they're moving. So give me Cleveland.
Give me CJ Stroud for this game. I believe for me, it was hard watching that Colts game and leaving that game and being like, hey, no moment's going to be too big for CJ Stroud. The poise that kid has, and he got pressured at the end of that game beyond belief, and that last drive was phenomenal. I mean, you look at a guy who's under pressure and just made throw after throw after throw, and they weren't like wide open throws. He threw it with anticipation. He threw it with some zest, and you know, I want to see it continue. I want to see CJ Stroud continue this run. So I think if Joe Flacco had been playing the whole year, then I would be like, yeah, but eventually with your tenure with the team, that has to matter. And I've got to give it to CJ Stroud for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Just one thing to note is that Cleveland has not allowed an offense to have more than 15 first downs in a season, and that's any kind of offense. So I'm just going to put that out there just in case you guys want to change your picks. You don't have to. I can be right and close the gap.
That's what CJ Stroud does. He throws bombs.
He only scored 23. Let's pump the brakes on his game against the Colts.
He might be the first one to do it. He might be the first one.
I don't think so. All right, so next game we have is
he'll put up 23 on the Browns. That's for sure.
I don't know. I don't think so. Here we go. We have Miami versus Kansas City. It is going to be exactly 0 degrees in Kansas City with a wind of 15 to 20 miles per hour. Give me Kansas City. Miami is not winning this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me Kansas City. I think their confidence is shot after what happened against Buffalo.
Isaiah Pacheco rolls. Give me the Chiefs.
Yes, he does.
Got a Dolphins
pick.
Fan right there, man.
Yeah, he did not like that pick at all. Poor
got
Judah.
a Dolphins fan getting mad.
And then we have Pittsburgh versus Buffalo. Give me Buffalo. TJ Watt is not playing. He is out. And so give me the Bills.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
Give me the Bills. I mean, it's the Steelers. You know, it's the Steelers.
By default.
Yeah, by default.
Now, this is the pick that I hope I'm wrong on. I would love to see Josh Allen out of the playoffs so we can get off this.
I thought you were talking about the next game.
Oh, no. This is Green Bay versus Dallas. I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Give me Dallas, and I hope Savage is right about his score. I hope he's right.
Yeah, we will for sure cover.
Alrighty, so now we have Los Angeles Rams versus Detroit. Give me the Rams in this game.
Rams.
Yeah.
And next we have, in our final game on Monday night, we have Philly versus Tampa Bay.
Give me Tampa. I think the Eagles, they're done. They're shot. There's just they don't believe in their coach anymore. They don't believe in each other anymore. And so for that reason, they're just gonna. It seems to me they've already packed their bags and are headed to Cancun already.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Sirianni is the worst coach in the playoffs currently, and if there was, for the 5 job spots or however many job spots are going to be open for a coaching job, I'm not sure if Nick Sirianni was on the market, he'd get hired. So
yeah, and isn't that just unbelievable? The fact that this man last year was a Super Bowl representative of the NFC, and then within a year, he might be fired. That's crazy to me.
It looks like he was carried. It looks like he was carried by his coordinators. That's what it looks like. I mean, you have to ask that question.
You look at Indy. Like, that should tell you the whole story about Nick Sirianni.
One play away from Gardner Minshew being a playoff quarterback.
Right?
It's like Jordan Love.
Mm-hmm.
How did he sneak in there? Not joking.
32 touchdowns. That's how.
Yeah, for real. For real. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Double Take It NFL Podcast. Chris, thank you so much for joining us and talking Rams football and also giving us your takes as well. It was great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for letting me be on anytime, man. And cry, Eagle, cry. That's what I got to say.
Yep. Here we go.
Try to get Steven in here next week, huh?
Yeah, for sure. For Savage, for Daniel, and myself, we hope you guys have a great weekend of watching Wildcard football. And until next week, God bless.
Michael Irvin curse.